You ever notice how some people pay off debt for years and still never feel financially free? They make every payment on time and somehow still feel behind. Here's the weird thing. Being responsible with money can sometimes become another form of fear, a quieter one. Someone sends an extra $500 toward their loan, then checks their bank account 3 times that night. Not because they feel secure, but because they feel exposed. Most people think debt is purely mathematical. Interest rates, minimum payments, but debt is emotional before it's financial. That's the part almost nobody talks about. And honestly, it changes everything. A lot of people aren't trying to eliminate debt. They're trying to eliminate anxiety. Those are not always the same thing, and this creates a problem that quietly follows people for years. Because fear can make someone feel productive, while slowly making them poorer. Welcome to Lion Invests. Most people think making more money will change their life, but usually, the real problem is the invisible pattern underneath their behavior. In this video, we break down why paying off debt early might actually be costing you money, and why the emotional need for safety can quietly destroy long-term wealth. If you want to understand money and behavior differently, subscribe, because this conversation gets uncomfortable fast. Look, nobody celebrates the person investing quietly for 20 years, but everyone praises the person who becomes debt-free. And psychologically, that matters more than people realize. Humans chase emotional relief before long-term optimization, almost every time. Imagine 2 people, same salary, same monthly debt payment. One spends every extra dollar attacking debt aggressively. The other invests part of it consistently, slowly, quietly, boringly. At first, the aggressive one looks smarter, more disciplined, more responsible. They post the final payment screenshot online. People congratulate them. They finally breathe for a second. But the really dangerous part happens after that moment. Because emotional relief feels like financial progress, even when the math says otherwise. Now, obviously, some debt absolutely should be paid off quickly. High-interest credit cards can financially suffocate people. That's real. A 24% interest rate is basically a financial fire. You don't optimize around a fire, you put it out. But low-interest debt is different. And modern life trained people to fear all debt equally, even when some debt is mathematically cheap. This sounds dramatic, but sometimes people spend years destroying wealth potential just to feel emotionally clean. That sentence bothers people because debt feels personal, like failure, like unfinished business sitting in the corner of your mind. One study found financial stress activates the same brain regions associated with physical danger. Your brain treats uncertainty like a threat, even if the numbers are manageable. So people chase certainty, not growth, not opportunity. And certainty feels addictive, especially after years of instability, especially if you grew up around financial chaos. Someone who watched their parents struggle with bills becomes obsessed with eliminating risk, even tiny risk, even productive risk. So they overpay a 3% loan for 10 years, while never investing seriously once, and nobody questions it. Because culturally, debt freedom sounds wise. Investing sounds uncertain, even though inflation quietly punishes cash every year. According to the Federal Reserve, many Americans don't even own enough investments to outpace inflation consistently, which means their money slowly loses purchasing power anyway, just more quietly. And this is where things quietly spiral, because avoiding financial discomfort today can create larger financial pain later. Think about compound interest, like planting trees. The earlier you plant them, the longer they grow without your effort. But most people delay planting because they're busy clearing every leaf off the ground first. Everything must feel perfect before they begin, and perfect never arrives. A person spends 10 extra years eliminating low-interest debt, then starts investing at 40 instead of 30. That delay becomes enormous. Not emotionally enormous, mathematically enormous, which is worse. Let's say someone invests $400 a month starting at 25. Average market returns around 8%. By retirement, that can become over $1 million. But wait 10 years to start, the ending changes dramatically, even if they invest more aggressively later. That's the brutal thing about time. It rewards early imperfection more than delayed perfection. People hate hearing that, because emotionally, humans want control first, growth second. That's the real psychological conflict. Debt payoff gives immediate emotional feedback. The balance drops. You feel progress instantly. Investing feels invisible at first, slow, almost pointless in the beginning. You put money into an index fund, and your life looks exactly the same afterward. No emotional reward. That's why so many people quit investing early. The brain struggles to value invisible future outcomes, especially stressed brains. Behavioral economists call this present bias. Humans naturally prioritize immediate emotional relief over future gain, even when the future gain is larger. And honestly, modern life makes this worse. Notifications, ads, comparison, constant emotional stimulation. People are exhausted, mentally overloaded, financially reactive. So paying off debt becomes emotionally symbolic. I'm fixing my life. I'm finally becoming responsible. But sometimes, they're only optimizing for emotional comfort, not long-term freedom. Those are different goals. You ever notice how some people become debt-free, then immediately start financing something else? A car, furniture, vacations. Because the real issue was never just the debt itself. It was the emotional loop underneath the behavior. And the loop stayed alive. This is the part most finance advice completely ignores. People don't repeatedly make bad money decisions because they're stupid. They do it because emotions create financial autopilot. The payment disappears, and suddenly there's space in their monthly budget. But also, a strange kind of emptiness, because for years, their identity was tied to, I'm paying this off. Now that identity is gone, so the brain looks for a replacement, something to manage, something to feel in control again. And this is where new debt quietly enters. Not loudly, not irresponsibly. Just small, justified decisions. This one is necessary. This one I deserve. And the loop resets. Different numbers, same behavior. That's why some people pay off debt multiple times in their life and still never build wealth, because they solved the symptom, not the system. Now you might be thinking, so should I just ignore debt? No, that's not what this is. This is about understanding trade-offs, because every dollar has two possible jobs, and you only get to choose one. A dollar can reduce past decisions, or it can build future options. It can't fully do both at the same time. And most people, without realizing it, choose the past. They allocate aggressively toward eliminating what already happened, instead of building what could happen next. That decision compounds. Think of it like walking uphill. Debt is the weight on your back. Investing is building strength in your legs. Some people spend all their energy removing weight, but never build strength. So the climb is still hard. Others remove some weight, while slowly building strength at the same time. Their climb changes over time. This isn't about being perfect. It's about not overcorrecting out of fear. That's where people lose years. And honestly, fear feels responsible. That's what makes it dangerous. It disguises itself as discipline. Someone avoids investing for years because they're not ready. But readiness becomes a moving target. Always slightly out of reach, they tell themselves, I'll invest once I'm debt-free. Then, once I have more income. Then, once the market feels safer. Then, once life is more stable. And time keeps moving anyway. Meanwhile, someone less prepared just starts. Messy, imperfect, consistent. And over 10 to 20 years, that difference becomes almost irreversible. Not emotionally, mathematically. This is where things get uncomfortable, because being cautious can sometimes cost more than being imperfect. That contradicts how people think. According to long-term market data, Missing just a handful of the best investment days drastically reduces returns. Timing matters less than participation, but participation requires tolerance for uncertainty. And uncertainty feels like danger to the brain, even when it's necessary. So people wait. And waiting feels safe, but it's quietly expensive. Inflation doesn't wait. Opportunity doesn't wait. Compounding definitely doesn't wait. It's like holding water in your hands. You think you're preserving it, but it's slowly slipping through anyway. And here's the part that really shifts things. Debt and investing are not enemies. They're competing priorities. The smartest approach is rarely extreme. It's balanced, intentional, slightly uncomfortable. Maybe you pay more than the minimum, but not everything extra. You still invest something consistently, even if it's small, even if it feels insignificant, because consistency matters more than intensity. That small investment does something powerful, not just financially, psychologically. It tells your brain, I'm not just fixing the past. I'm building the future too. And that identity shift matters more than people realize, because behavior follows identity, not the other way around. You stop seeing yourself as someone catching up and start seeing yourself as someone building forward. That changes decisions. You become less reactive, less emotional about money, more intentional. Now, this doesn't mean ignore high interest debt. Again, that's a fire. Put that out aggressively. But once the fire is controlled, you don't need to keep flooding the entire house. That's where overcorrection happens. You can breathe and start building at the same time. Both can exist together. And honestly, this is where most people finally feel a shift. Not just in money, but in control. Because control isn't eliminating all risk. It's learning how to move with it calmly, gradually. Your future isn't decided by one big decision. It's shaped by hundreds of small, repeated ones, usually unnoticed. The extra payment, the small investment, the decision you barely think about. That's what builds a life, not dramatic moments, quiet patterns. So if you've been obsessively paying down every dollar of debt, pause for a second. Not to stop, but to think. Ask yourself, am I optimizing for peace right now or freedom later? Because sometimes those are different paths, at least in the short term. And recognizing that difference is where people start changing everything, slowly, intentionally. Your money isn't just numbers, it's behavior repeated over time. And once you see that, you can finally change it.